Well, you know what that means. It's another Sunday and another book discussion with my fellow bookshelf members. Well, I'm an honorary member. I'm coming off the substitutes bench, as it were, as I'm standing in for Marcelle. Today, I'm joined by my colleagues, eNCA journalists Rofhiwa, Madzena and Heidi Giokos, as we discuss the book Future Next, Reimagining Our World, Conquering Uncertainty, co-authored by Sanei and Iraj Abedian. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us. Firstly, we see both of you on television running all over the place, distilling all kinds of data every single day. Where do you find the time to read, Rofhiwa?
I don't know, Marcelle. I think, actually, I read on the flight back from Cape Town yesterday, so you find...
Yeah, 2 hours.
2 hours.
And your phone had to be off, so...
That's right, so I had nothing else to do but read. But you find the time here and there when you're not running around. I don't know how Heidi does.
Heidi?
She runs around more than me.
Yeah, she really does.
It's really tough. The other day I found myself reading in court while we were waiting for the judge to come in. So you have to find literally 5 minutes and read at least 10 pages.
And I must admit, before we really start digging into this book, I must admit, I find it because we are always reading the news and keeping abreast of what is happening. And then there's social media and you do the death scroll, as they call it. And before you know it, an hour has passed. I try and find books to read that I tend towards fiction, as it were, and other people's life's experiences. Because otherwise, you know, your brain just never takes a break from the real world. I don't know if you find the same when you're trying to decide on a book to read, Rofhiwa.
That's absolutely true, but surprisingly, I actually prefer non-fiction. But maybe true crime horrors, for example, something completely
different, zombies and stuff.
Exactly. So I'll read about serial killers and all sorts of interesting things. And really that kind of just keeps a balance from all the news that we are constantly consuming.
So, because you do need to give your brain your break, don't you?
Most definitely. I mean, reading about corruption and covering all these different kind of stories. Because I cover so much, I actually just find it very difficult.
So no books for you, Heidi, about airlines and the economy. So nothing airline related.
I prefer reading court papers, to be really honest.
Well, there you have it. Okay, so the book is called Future Next by Sanei and Iraj Abedian. Two people that I wouldn't have thought knew each other. I mean, I came across Sanei by people who are sort of deep into the social media world and listen to all the latest TED Talks and that kind of thing. And of course, we know Iraj from being a top economist now. Probably, I mean, I've been a journalist for 2 decades and I can't remember a time where Iraj hasn't been somebody that is the go-to person for an opinion and really sees himself almost as an economic activist, as it were. Rofhiwa, the Future Next, Reimagining Our World, Conquering Uncertainty. Can you set up the foundation for what this book is about for those who are still trying to decide whether or not that's something for them?
So the book is basically about this whole new world that we have been thrown into with COVID-19 and how we move or try to maneuver within the new world, accepting that this is the new normal and how we then begin to navigate that new normal. And what the authors do is they break it up quite nicely into 3 themes: embracing the unknown, asking new questions, and reimagining collective futures and what we can do. And my favorite part of this is in the first theme of the book where we talk about the naive and the mature mind. So people in the naive mind can choose to be angry and confused about the situation, whereas mature people will look at it, accept that it's there, and try to find ways to move forward while bringing people in with them. And it's very interesting. So that's basically the lay of the land of the book, is that this is what's happening and how do we move forward from it or within it.
Heidi, it's basically a book that's been written in real time. The fact that it's come out it's November, and already we've got these 2 great minds from different spheres of society, as it were, who've been able to distill what the world and indeed our country has gone through over the last few months and said, right, they've drawn the line, this is where we are, this is not going to go away. What are we going to learn from this and go forward?
Exactly, and actually you read in the book where they speak about the fact that they had to change parts of the book because they already started writing it earlier in the year, but then COVID hit and they had to basically reimagine the world, and that's what the book focuses on. There's a specific part in the book that I really relate to, and maybe it's because I had COVID and my world was spinning and I was so uncertain as to what was going to happen. Am I going to wake up the next day with serious symptoms? was. But this book specifically focuses on how 2020 calendar was completely cancelled. And your plans, your future plans, your current plans, that was all cancelled. And the reason for that is because COVID-19 tells you that actually you cannot plan. There is no way for you to plan. So this book almost gives you tools to say, you're going to go through the emotions, you're going to feel uncertainty, you're going to feel emotions, but here are tools to equip yourself and also remind yourself that you cannot plan. There is no way to plan. So all these emotions come through, but it's important for you to understand that there's a specific part in the book that I quickly want to go through. It says that this is a chance for us to emerge with a stronger, more adaptable mindset and to prepare for collective future we want. So it says the plans that you had, the systems that work for you actually aren't working because you're just too familiar with them, and that's your normal. Your brain goes with normality. Your brain wants to stick with what's normal and familiar.
Pattern, yeah.
Yes, but that's actually not what's working. It's an opportunity for us to say these systems are actually quite complex and we should find a way to deal with the problems in a different way so that we can actually solve them.
That's right. And in the book, when they describe what Heidi's saying, they call it the complicated mind and the complex
mind. Yeah.
So we are in a world where we've always been used to complicated, where we see a problem and we know exactly how to deal it. Now it's not so black and white anymore.
No, it's not.
There's this complex element that's come in, and what's going to be important is how we deal with it in the complex form that it's in. But another point that I wanted to raise, Marcelle, which I thought was quite interesting, I didn't think they'd bring the media into this.
But of course they'd have to.
Always.
We're
Yeah, just not a warning, but just saying be careful of how you consume the media, particularly because...
America, are you listening?
Because it's COVID-19 strong, and instead of panicking, you need to look at what you're seeing, analyze if it's true.
Critical thinking.
Factual, exactly. Use the critical thinking, and that's where it's become more important than ever to do so. And don't just take for granted that what you're seeing on the television is fact and it's truthful. So that whole idea of you being able to sift through all, I don't want to say rubbish, but being able to sift
the noise, sift through the noise.
Exactly, and then just take away what you can and use it to adapt to the new normal.
Now John Sanei is a future strategist, and I found his honesty quite telling, in that he said, look, this is what I've made my life's work from, my career from. He's based in Dubai, but he spent lockdown on the family farm here in Limpopo. And the honesty with which he said, even I have had to re-look everything that I've known to be true or certain, because nothing is indeed certain. But what COVID-19 has done is just sped up everything. The future is indeed now. We always used to say that it's something in the ad world, but it is indeed now, and it's what we do from here. And the element that I take from it is that focus on the success of the individual and how it's always been judged basically on material gain. That really does need to change, and it's not just some airy-flary hippie thing that we should be believing, because if we don't focus on other things other than material gain, humanity really will find itself in this situation time and time again.
It's interesting that you mention that, because there's a part of the book that actually speaks about not only focusing on self-interest, but actually looking at the world with a COVID lens and what it's done to the world. And it's interesting that these two individuals came together, because you have a future strategist and you have an economist that relies so much on data. But also, it speaks about the responsibility that individuals need to take, and how individuals need to try and find a way to better the world we live in, and that the world that we were so used to is not the world that we should aspire for.
Ladies, I have to leave it there. You can see it's a really small book. Sorry, Rofhiwa. Rofhiwa will tweet what she was about to say, or go and follow her. You can't say I don't help you there. I also quite like the layout of the book. It really is, you can read it in bite sizes, you can come back to it, and that kind of thing. And I suppose that is where the world of books is going as well. Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. And they've laid it out really nicely and neatly. Rofhiwa, I'm going to go to your Twitter and see what you had to say that I didn't give you a chance to say, but I've been told that's all the time that we have for our bookshelf feature for this week. Now,